All right, so let's talk about how to do these confidence intervals for two population means in StatCrunch to get those values that you saw before. So, I mean, this is something I'm hoping you could have just discovered, right? But we were always doing our confidence intervals in StatCrunch using the stat section. When we were talking about means, we would never use ZStat as we discussed. That is bananas. We're going to use TStat. And then we have two samples instead of one, right? We can see that with our stent versus control groups in this particular example. And because we're dealing with this sort of contrived example where we already have the information and we don't have the raw data, we're going to say with summary. And then we can go ahead and just type in everything. This is why we did that little breakdown, except for even easier than our work that we did previously, we don't have any notation. We just need to type in the sample mean for our first sample, the sample standard deviation for that first sample, and our sample size. And then we do the same thing for the next sample. So the control had a disability score of mean disability score of 3.23, had the same standard deviation, surprisingly, and a sample size of 93. A really common misunderstanding for students is they think these two samples have to be the exact same size to be able to compare them. And that's not true. These are very similar in size, but they could be wildly different. The formula kind of takes that into account and weights things properly. So as we go, um, pooling variances, we're never going to choose this. This would not be an inappropriate time to do this. We can see these two standard deviations for our two samples are identical. Pooling our variances typically gets us slightly narrower intervals, slightly smaller p-values. So if we have a reason to believe that the two groups have the same amount of variability, it's not a bad thing to do. And our samples here kind of indicate that they might have a similar amount of variability because they're exactly the same in terms of standard deviation. But because we don't know that for sure, it's not going to buy us a whole lot, and so I'm just not going to choose that. And we want to do a confidence interval, and this one said a 90%. So let's change that confidence level. And we go. There's our confidence level, a negative 1.396 to a negative 0.544. So that's how you find our confidence intervals for two means in StatCrunch. Very similar to doing it for one mean, T-stats, changing it to sample, and then deciding, do I have raw data or am I given summary statistics as we were in this particular example?